All right. Hello, hello. I've got 6:30 on the dot. Welcome. Good evening. This is the Virginia Living Museum 2022 Naturally Speaking series. I'm Rebecca Kleinhample, Executive Director here at the Living Museum. And we're going to get started with our housekeeping, which is we're recording, and so it's a virtual session on record so that we can share it at a later time through a private link. We have a question and answer box down at the bottom of your screen. If you click that Q&A, you can ask questions by typing them into the question box. You will see within that box, you can thumbs up or upvote a question if you see one in there that you enjoy and want it to be answered first, if possible. And we'll hold all questions here this evening till the end of the presentation and have a dialogue at that point. And we are always interested in your feedback. So please share that at the end, either in the question box or reply on our website at thevlm.org. So tonight we're here to speak with Mark Losavio about the important roles that national marine sanctuaries play in our ecosystem and the sanctuaries that are most relevant here in Hampton Roads in particular. Mark joined the Monitor National Marine Sanctuary team last year in 2021 as the Media and Outreach Coordinator. So Mark, I understand you like sharing science and stories and the relevance of the sanctuary here and with a national audience. I guess your job is, you're from Kentucky, so from the South, and you have a BS, Bachelor's in Marine Science, right, from the University of South Carolina, and then your master's degree in marine biology from Northeastern. So we've got you schooled. You're in a great job to speak to audiences, right? And I understand that this is something that's near and dear to your heart, as well as, you know, diving, right? And sailing. So I think you're probably a real great advocate for our community. And I'm just going to ask you to share about, obviously, the importance of the sanctuaries that we do have based on the ecology. They're based on history, right? Cultural significance. We here at the Virginia Living Museum share nature by connecting people with the resources of this incredible state. So there are a lot of animals and invertebrates that are share that ecosystem and benefit from the area being a sanctuary. So we are thrilled to have you here, Mark Losavio. You've got a presentation for us. So when you're ready, please go ahead and share your slides. Here we go.
Thank you very much.
That must be you.
Yes, hopefully you could all see my smiling, waving face underwater there. I do enjoy recreating in our waters. It's true, it's true. But yes, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And thank you all for being here today. I'm so excited and honored to be able to talk to you all here, well, virtually here at the Virginia Living Museum. So yeah, my name is Mark Losavio, and I'm the Outreach Coordinator for the Monitor and Mallows Bay, Potomac River National Marine Sanctuaries. I work to communicate the science and the stories of the sanctuary system through, as we can see, a variety of ways, especially having to get creative in the past year or so. But I'm here tonight to tell you about your national marine sanctuaries and the very special celebrations that we were hoping to share with you this year on our 50th birthday. Tonight, I'm going to be telling you about what a marine sanctuary is, sort of what we do, and how you can help make one. And then I'll try and talk about some of the sanctuaries that are closest to us. So before I get all of that, as a government entity, I feel like it's good to give a sort of roadmap to explain where in the humongous government we work, right? So my office is very far down the branching river that is the Department of Commerce. And in the Department of Commerce is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It's sort of like, I like to think of it as NASA, but for the Earth and ocean. If you've ever heard of the National Weather Service, that kind of makes up the A in NOAA. But the office where I work in, the National Ocean Service, is the O. And in the National Ocean Service is the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries. So what is a National Marine Sanctuary? So as a result of the National Marine Sanctuaries Act signed in 1972, the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries serves as a trustee for a network of underwater parks encompassing more than 620,000 square miles of marine and Great Lakes waters from Washington State to the Florida Keys and from Lake Huron to American Samoa. This network includes a system of 15 national marine sanctuaries and 2 marine national monuments, Papahanaumokuakea and Rose Atoll. So national marine sanctuaries are protected waters that include habitats such as rocky reefs, kelp forests, deep sea canyons. I love this picture and I love that little lumpfish down there, and historical and cultural sites. Similar to national parks on land, these underwater preserves provide a safe habitat for species, protect historically significant shipwrecks, and celebrate our submerged cultural history. They can range in size from less than 1 square mile to over 500,000 square miles. And each sanctuary is a unique place needing special protections. Marine sanctuaries are natural classrooms, cherished recreational spots, and valuable commercial industries. So what does a sanctuary do? The system works with a diverse set of partners and stakeholders to promote responsible, sustainable ocean use that ensures the health of our most valued ocean places. A healthy ocean is the basis for thriving recreation, tourism, and commercial activities that drive coastal economies, a lot like our coastal economy. How do we achieve this task or this goal? We do it through these 4 major, I guess, pillars of the sanctuaries. And the first one might be the biggest. It's kind of necessary. It's kind of what you think of when you think of a national marine sanctuary. But the National Marine Sanctuary System brings together a collection of some of America's most significant and treasured places. Taken together, the sanctuary system conserves a network of ocean and Great Lakes environments with extraordinary biodiversity, scenic beauty, cultural heritage, and economic opportunity. Within this system, each national marine sanctuary has unique ecosystems, resources, and human uses. They're all different. And while all sanctuaries emphasize resource protection and decision-making based on best available scientific and socioeconomic data, they are managed per their own individual issues and opportunities. They're all managed differently. Policy and planning within the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries is designed to manage both the sum of the sanctuary system and the parts of the system. It follows these principles of public participation and adaptive management, both which are fundamental to the National Marine Sanctuaries Act. It really relies on public participation and that adaptive management. So through the lens of resource protection, we are seeking to address many things. Pictured here is a group of people at Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument, and they're removing derelict fishing gear. But we also look at endangered and protected species like the Hawaiian monk seal or the North Atlantic right whale. It's a really important issue they're looking at in Stellwagen Bank National Marine Sanctuary. We also look at habitat loss and recovery, such as the Mission Iconic Reefs project going on in the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary. This picture is actually a kind of a coral reef farm where they'll grow coral frags at the Moat Marine Lab, and they can go out and kind of plant them on the reefs of the Florida Keys. And we also look at historical preservation. A lot of our nation's history can be really examined and studied and appreciated beneath the waves all across the country. So this is a picture of a diver inspecting the D.M. Wilson and Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Given that each sanctuary has its own unique story to tell, each sanctuary has its own management plan designed to help guide and govern activities and programs that take place in their waters. They identify immediate, mid-range, and long-term challenges and opportunities and develop a course for the future. So what I might read in the monitor's management plan is not necessarily the same thing I'll read in the Greater Farallone's management plan. They're 2 very different places with very different needs to be met. The next kind of pillar, this is kind of the backbone, I guess, of the sanctuaries, is research and monitoring, because you really can't do any of these other things without the science behind it. But the sanctuaries conduct and support research programs tailored to meet the needs, again, of each sanctuary. These programs target a wide array of topics involving natural processes, human influences on the water, habitat, living resources, and maritime heritage. Sanctuary staff and volunteers focus on learning more about our sanctuaries, tracking and predicting trends and conditions, and understanding the value that each sanctuary has to the people of our nation. Marine sanctuaries are places where government, academic, and citizen scientists can work collectively and together to share information on sanctuary conditions and emerging threats. And one of the ways we do this is through the Sentinel Sites program. This is a really cool program. I really love it. But it's where monitoring and research efforts can take place that enhance our understanding of a natural and historical resource and how they're changing, as well as provide an early warning capability that detects changes to an ecosystem processes and conditions. So you can kind of think of each sanctuary as like a sample of the ocean, where we can go and gather a huge amount of data and compare. Like I can go in and measure the pH of the water in the Monitor National Marine Sanctuary. And then I can compare that to Gray's Reef or Stellwagen Bank, both other sanctuaries on the East Coast. But since the sanctuaries are very diverse locations, they can give us a good view of our entire nation's ocean condition, right? So I can compare that data from Stellwagen and Gray's Reef and look at American Samoa or Hawaii or Olympic Coast. So the Sentinel sites look at a huge array of things that I won't really get into the weeds right now, just because it's a lot. But just know that it's a lot. It's also really fun to do research for the sanctuaries. Say that from personal experience. But the next major pillar of what a sanctuary does is the education and outreach portion, which might be my favorite, if I'm being honest. But the challenges that are facing the ocean today cross geographic and ethnic boundaries, right? And the sanctuary system oversees places where people can find common ground and discuss possible solutions. Sanctuary education and outreach efforts strive to link communities through innovative programs and help spread awareness of the ocean's connection to us all. The vision is to create an ocean literate public capable of making informed environmental decisions. So the mission is to inspire ocean and climate literacy and conservation through your national marine sanctuaries. One of my favorite ways that we do this is through the Ocean Guardian School program, which is kind of more hands-off in terms of sanctuary staff. But it's a program where a school makes a commitment to the protection and conservation of one of its local watersheds or the world's ocean or any special ocean area like a national marine sanctuary, but it doesn't have to be a marine sanctuary. And then the school makes this commitment by proposing and then implementing a school or community-based conservation project. And some of the projects that they come up with are pretty cool. They apply for a grant with the Ocean Guardian School program, and then they receive money if they get the grant for 1 to 5 years to help accomplish this goal. I can't really quantify just the sheer number of educator resources that the Sanctuaries program has. Like, it's a humongous amount of videos, worksheets, lesson plans. It's humongous. And I really encourage you to go to the website, sanctuaries.noaa.gov, to just go wild. But one of the things that we're doing to celebrate the 50th anniversary this year is we're making themed educator resource collections where, say last month, we released the Coral Reef Resource Collection, where you'll find every educator resource for coral reef lesson planning, every video, every lesson plan, every activity that you could think of, infographics about coral reefs, whales, shipwrecks, and they'll be coming out pretty much every month. You can find that on our social media, but you'll find them on our websites too. And each sanctuary has an educator resource section on their website tailored to what they have. So if you're looking for something about shipwrecks, Monitor National Marine Sanctuary in Thunder Bay is where you should go. And then the final kind of component of the educator and outreach section is the visitor centers. And this one is kind of complicated because each sanctuary has their own kind of level of visitor center. Some sanctuaries have an actual dedicated building, like Gray's Reef. They're building one right now. It should be ready to go in October. But other sanctuaries like Monitor kind of rely on partners to kind of showcase their story. So you may or may not know of the Mariners Museum and Park, which is just down the street. That sort of serves as the Monitor's visitor center. So if you ever go there, you'll probably see me wandering around the exhibits because I do like to go there a lot. The final kind of piece of the sanctuary puzzle is the community engagement. For a sanctuary to be successful, it must have the support and involvement of the communities that border and rely on it. The site involves communities in their sanctuaries through a variety of methods, including advisory councils, public meetings, volunteer opportunities, and education and outreach events. So there are a number of ways to get involved with your local sanctuary. And that includes us if you're ever interested. But the main way I'm going to talk about tonight is the Sanctuary Advisory Council, which is a community-based advisory group established to provide advice and recommendations to the superintendents of the 15 sites on issues including management, science, service, stewardship, events, outreach, education. You can form working groups with the SAC Council, we call them SACs, to help garner ideas and move things along in each sanctuary. It's a really fascinating program. The Monitor National Marine Sanctuary SAC and the Mallows Bay are both super active in their communities, and they involve representatives. There's a student seat, local high school student, there's a research seat, business seat, recreational fishing seat, what have you. It's a fascinating program. So now I'm going to show you sort of a cool timeline that we have of the sanctuaries. I just wanted to give you guys kind of like a visual representation of just how long we've been around. We started in 1972, happy 50th birthday. And I want you to kind of look here at this gap between Thunder Bay and Mallows Bay, a pretty long gap in designation for sanctuaries. And there's a very special reason for that, which I will go into now about how do we make a national marine sanctuary. So since 2014, in response to ongoing widespread interest from the public, NOAA launched a new locally driven sanctuary nomination process developed with input with almost 20,000 public comments. This essentially means that you can go out and nominate a national marine sanctuary instead of waiting on NOAA to do it. And so here's how it goes. Step one, a group of people who care passionately about protecting an area of our nation's marine or Great Lakes waters collaborate to develop a nomination that includes key site information and broad community support. Step two, submitting the nomination to the Office of National Marine Sanctuary via email or mail if you want to go the old school route. Step three, the initial review will examine if the nomination has enough information to proceed and may return it to the community if it feels like more information is needed. Step four, once those basic requirements are met, NOAA will take a closer look at the different factors that make a nominated location a potential candidate for designation. Things like, what kind of natural resources are we looking at here? What kind of cultural resources or cultural impact does this area have? This is also the time when NOAA will start engaging with any tribal or state and federal entities. For instance, the Monitor National Marine Sanctuary is a very close partnership with the state of North Carolina. Step five, if all of the cards fall into place, the nomination is accepted and the community will be notified, and then probably a party will ensue. And then step six, once the nomination is accepted, it is then added to the inventories of areas considered for designations. You can actually go and find this list online. You can go to the Sanctuary's website if you want to learn more about how, if you're interested, to nominate a national marine sanctuary. You can look at the very, very long list of sanctuaries currently up for designation. It's really cool to see the areas of our nation's waters that people feel that need to be set aside for sanctuary nomination and designation. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about some of the sanctuaries that are both up for nomination and are already in the system. So first up is the proposed Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary. This is an ecological transition zone between the subtropical and temperate waters of Western North America, nominated by the Northern Chumash Tribal Council. It's a gorgeous location, located just south of Channel Islands in California. Lots of really great deep water ecology there and kelp forests, but also has a very strong cultural connection to the local community there, which is similar to this next nominated sanctuary, the proposed Lake Ontario National Marine Sanctuary on the other side of the country, a nationally significant collection of maritime heritage resources, including historic shipwrecks, nominated by the local community in New York. But one of the most recent designated sanctuaries, number 14, is located just 3 to 4 hours, depending on traffic, north of Hampton Roads, the Mallows Bay Potomac River National Marine Sanctuary. This sanctuary protects and interprets the remnants of a more than 100 World War I era wooden steamships known as the Ghost Fleet and other maritime resources and cultural heritage dating back nearly 12,000 years. There's a lot of history in this small plot of water and land. And so while the Ghost Fleet is sort of like the conversation starter of this sanctuary, it's unique in its location along the tidal portion of the Potomac River, with a brackish aquatic ecology and a number of terrestrial and avian participants in the local ecosystem. This sanctuary was a community nomination, the first actually since the process was started, and has an active community, especially in the SAC. And so while the sanctuary, it has like a nearby park and some hiking trails, the best way to access the sanctuary is via kayak. So for the 50th anniversary celebrations, we have a number of community paddles scheduled over the summer months. We have actually 2 coming up in July. There's like a Blue Star paddle for Juneteenth, and then the following week we're going to do a Pride paddle. But I understand if a 4-hour drive is a bit daunting. It is kind of a long drive. It's beautiful. It's a gorgeous drive and worth it, but it's long. So we have been spending a lot of time to try and make virtual products, virtual ways that you can participate with and engage with your national marine sanctuary. For instance, this cool video. It's gorgeous, right? You can see some of the ships of the Ghost Fleet. You can actually see the Accomack in the background, but we've actually been spending a lot of time to try and make this sort of virtual reality trip where you can go in and kind of control what you're looking at during the entire video. So here's the Accomack. You may have heard about that ship before. It's a very famous one. But it's these products like this that we're trying to use to engage people that might not necessarily have access to the sanctuary. And personally, I just think it's really, really cool. Imagine putting on a VR headset and just being in the sanctuary. We're also working on an entire virtual tour where you can click through yourself and explore at your own pace. And this is the man behind it all, Nick Sakar, great guy. So the next sanctuary the last sanctuary I'm going to talk about is actually the first one that was ever nominated, the Monitor National Marine Sanctuary. And the first sanctuary ever designated in the United States. It protects the wreck of the famed Civil War ironclad, the USS Monitor. If you know anything about the Battle of Hampton Roads, you probably know about the story of the Monitor. It actually sank off the coast of Cape Hatteras. So this sanctuary is unique in its designation as one focused not on a natural resource, but one on a cultural resource. Not a lot of sanctuaries are designated around that. However, the wreck also serves as a living shipwreck for deep sea corals, sharks, and invertebrates that are vital to the local ecosystem, especially sand tiger sharks. Those are huge out on the wrecks over in the Outer Banks. Like Mallows Bay, we are trying to do more virtual outreach. So similar to what we're doing right now, we have a webinar series. Since 1975, the inception of the sanctuary, NOAA and the state of North Carolina have been working to research, honor, and protect the hallmarks of our nation's underwater cultural heritage, shipwrecks. They serve as a uniquely accessible underwater museum and a memorial to generations of mariners who lived and died off of our shores, many of them who came from this area. One of the ways in these strange times that we're looking to honor this partnership with the state of North Carolina is through our webinar series, where we'll invite an expert or a storyteller to talk about one aspect of our shared submerged maritime heritage. And I promise that most of them will not conflict with this webinar series, so you can actually go to and watch both, and they are recorded as well. But upcoming in March 8th and 9th, if you're a history buff, you may know that those are the dates of the Battle of Hampton Roads, and we'll be holding 2 webinars, very, very special webinars in conjunction with the Mariners Museum. But this webinar on April 12th is very, very special because it's a sort of pre-briefing to our very exciting expedition that we'll be holding later this spring in May, called the Valor of the Atlantic. So using state-of-the-art remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, Valor in the Atlantic will be investigating historic shipwrecks like the USS Monitor. We will be actually sending an ROV down to the Monitor just to get eyes on it, as well as other shipwrecks from World War I and most predominantly from World War II's Battle of the Atlantic. The NOAA ship Nancy Foster will act as the research platform and will be equipped with the capability for telepresence, which streams ROV video live through the internet, showcasing these nationally significant wrecks and sites and their biological communities to the public and other scientists as the dives are taking place. Our education collaborators will broadcast these live events in their venues, literally bringing the wonders of these historic wrecks to life for a lot of people. It's really exciting. You can actually call the ship as they're diving on these sites and ask them questions about what they're seeing. You can call and ask like, hey, what is that fish there? And they can go back and look at it for you. We're super excited to do this. And we're going to be finally getting some high quality video on the monitor in quite a while, which personally I'm very excited about. So I want you to please join us in that. I invite you all, pay attention to our social medias, our newsletters. Here's more of our information, but please keep up to date on some of this cool, exciting stuff. It's been, I'm sure a lot of you may feel the same, but we've kind of been cooped up for a while. So we're really excited to get all these events out in the open to celebrate with everyone. But yeah, that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, please email me at the email here. Both Mallows Bay and Monitor have a Facebook page and a Twitter. You can follow those if you'd like. And now's the time for questions. You can ask me anything too. I don't know the answer to everything, but ask me anything.
Oh boy, Mark, you said it. I didn't. I wasn't going to go that far. Hey, fantastic. I'll just chat here a little bit while we see if anyone online with us would like to submit a question or comment in that Q&A box, bottom of your screen. Remember, it says Q&A. Mark, you mentioned that the sharks, which, you know, of course we showcase here at the museum in our Chesapeake Bay Gallery tank. Sand tigers, I know sandbars are big. There, of course, are great whites and a lot more during the warmer weathers. There's about 50 shark species in this general area. I'm wondering, you know, between all these 16 sanctuaries, just the vast variety of them and the size. So you said could be less than a square mile.
So honestly, I think Monitor might be the smallest one. It's about a mile and it's like a mile diameter column of water that just protects the wreck of the USS Monitor.
That's what I thought. So we're not really protecting the biodiversity around the area. And that is what I would have thought a sanctuary, that term, would mean.
Right. So
I learned a lot today.
Yes, there are some sanctuaries that are designed to do that. For example, I guess one of the most clear-cut examples is the Hawaiian Island humpback whale sail.
Yeah.
That's their whole thing, humpback whales. Like, they look at and they study and examine other creatures, but their mandate is to look after those whales. There's actually a lot of buzz going on right now over there because there was a pretty major entanglement that they reacted to, and they were able to free a mother and her calf from an entanglement event. It was a huge thing.
Great. So what it does, I mean, when you focus on a species, you obviously run into, no pun intended, so many other species that are part of that web or chain or system. It would seem to make sense to do that here, or to be a little, you know, expand the opportunity. At one time, there was talk about expanding this sanctuary. Is there any now?
So the expansion is kind of in like a weird government pause right now, and just because there's so many, it's kind of complicated, and like, I don't want to say political because it's not political, but it's like administratively complicated. So if there are any specific questions about the expansion, please reach out to Tane Casserly. He's our resource protection and permit coordinator. He's the expert on all things expansion. But I do want to say that you're right. If you do design a sanctuary around one thing, I mean, you can't like exclude everything out of that sanctuary. You can't say, sorry, no fish here. But there have been studies that show that just the existence of an MPA in any shape or form can still benefit the ecology and the community. And so the Monitor Sanctuary was designated so long ago, 1975. It really wasn't, back then, people weren't necessarily too concerned with making a whole bunch of sanctuaries to protect ecology. They protected the area around the monitor, but just by doing that, and you can ask anybody in the Outer Banks, all of those wrecks are the best places to go fishing. They always attract the fish, and those fish attract the sharks, and that's why they're there. So
Right.
it's still has an effect, I think.
Okay. Question about Atlantic right whales. So Yukari wanted maybe some more information on those. I would imagine this is also challenging because, you know, migration patterns, right whales certainly aren't focused in one area as their, you know, their paths are so large. What do you think?
That's exactly right. Let me find, so right whale migration. That's kind of a big worm, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But Gray's Reef National Marine Sanctuary and Stellwagen Bank kind of offer as like the anchors to the migration pattern of the North Atlantic right whale. They like to go up north near New England to kind of beef up food, get a lot of food. And then they like to come down. Actually, a lot of bathing whales do this, but they like to come down to more warmer, more tropical-ish waters to mate and calve. So Gray's Reef really kind of deals with them during that time. And then Stellwagen Bank, they look at a lot of things. They look at, because there's also a lot of fishing in New England, and it's important. Like the fishing in New England is a huge part of the economy. So they try to look at ways to try to make every party happy. And a lot of that kind of focuses on this fish here on the right, this little guy sticking out of the sand. This is a sand lance, and that kind of makes up the basis for a lot of the food web or food chain of the New England fisheries. And so that's one of the things that they're looking at. How is the health of their base of the food chain doing in this area?
Okay, great. Question here from Katie. What about, do you know any place near Louisville that would be worth nominating as a sanctuary?
Any place near Louisville? Kentucky?
Louisville, I'm not sure what area. So as we think about that, maybe Katie can provide more specific information. Deanna, does the designation of the National Marine Sanctuary change the ways that people can recreate or harvest from them in general? Or does it only provide specific protections to those historic, you know, cultural significant artifacts or the species that were there to be protected? So does the sanctuary change the ways that people can utilize that area?
So that's a very good question. And to be honest, there really isn't like a blanket like framework for what a sanctuary tells you can and cannot do. It really depends on the sanctuary, and it depends on the community that is being involved with the sanctuary. So I'll say like at Monitor, there really isn't a lot of restrictions at all. I don't think the only major restrictions is that we don't ask you to drag anything across the seafloor just because it could damage the wreck and also damage your gear. But like you can still fish. Well, you can't really surf on the Monitor, but dive. That's all that stuff is actually encouraged. That's one of the big things that we're focusing on right now is we're actually trying to encourage people to go out and appreciate these sanctuaries just because of how beautiful they are, and to remind you that this is what the ocean could look like when we all pitch in together and try to make it as great as possible. But I will give you an example that I think there was a regulation of the Florida Keys that was actually requested by the public to prohibit a certain, maybe it was a time period or a certain amount of spearfishing in their sanctuary. So that was something that the sanctuary requested. It was something that the people did. It depends on the sanctuary.
So then you get into what you mentioned, politically charged areas, perhaps, because obviously a lot of people recreate on the waters and want to have access. And so if they feel, or the perception is that the designation of a sanctuary would change those behaviors, that could absolutely be challenging. Katie confirmed, yes, she was speaking about Louisville, Kentucky. All right, so sanctuaries are based, at least, you know, with the NOAA designation of a sanctuary, on the Great Lakes and oceans. And so far that's it, right? No rivers are involved?
So the grayest line is when we get to Mallows Bay, because that is technically on the Potomac River, but the Potomac River is kind of like a tidal offshoot of the Chesapeake Bay.
Okay.
So it's still brackish, it's still a marine environment. When we start getting into things like freshwater lakes that aren't the Great Lakes, because the Great Lakes are a special kind of beast. That's more of like a national park, Department of Interior, US Fish and Wildlife thing. But Louisville does have a lot of great historical connection to the ocean that I just know personally because I'm a big fan.
Gotcha. All right, here's a great one from Catherine. So we're thrilled, Mark, that you made it to this point. So what was it that inspired you, right, to go on into the rigor of a master's degree program in marine biology? Do you have something that helped you, maybe a first field assignment or you're diving? What do you think you could share maybe for those folks who want to be you someday? What was it? What did it for you?
That is another very difficult question. You guys are
Well,
all
was
killing
it
it with
your
the
upbringing?
questions.
Was it your parents? Was it absolutely
Hmm.
not that?
Well, I mean, obviously my parents has to do with how I turned out, but I think, I mean, I always wanted to be a scientist, and that was definitely something my parents nurtured. And I guess a lot of times, one of the biggest things that a marine biologist will hear, if you ask marine biologists, they'll tell you this, but they'll always say that when you say like, hey, I'm studying to be a marine scientist, or I'm studying marine biology, they'll be like, oh, I used to want to do that. And then they get like sad. They're like, I wish I had followed my life's dream to be a marine biologist. I never understood why people did that. Like, why not just do it? But I think like the biggest activity or thing that made me want to really pursue this is when I did my AmeriCorps year. I did a year of AmeriCorps with the New England Science and Sailing Foundation, where I spent the year kind of teaching the New London, Connecticut school district children how to like study and recreate and appreciate the ocean, and mainly how to sail. That was a lot of fun. I loved it. And it showed me that every single person in this country, on this planet, has and can have a connection and appreciation for the ocean, no matter who you are or what you do. So that's what it
AmeriCorps.
is.
So was that a volunteer position?
It's not necessarily a volunteer. It's something special. It's sort of like Peace Corps, but for America. You do get a small stipend, very small stipend, but it's like a service position.
Great. Okay, what's your favorite ocean species?
Oof.
You have to pick one. Said your favorite.
Oh. Okay, I'm gonna pick the Puget Sound king crab.
King crab.
These gigantic, like basketball-sized, like armored tank crabs over Washington. They just chill on the bottom. You can pick them up and move them out of the way of your transect line, and they don't care. I love those guys. They're hilarious.
What do you think of lionfish?
Lionfish are beautiful and unfortunate. It's unfortunate that they are a very heavily invasive species in our coasts here in the Atlantic. It's unfortunate because it's not really their fault, but they are a pretty voracious predator. They don't really have a lot of predators themselves, but I do hear they make a tasty sandwich. So do with that what you will.
We have those here at the Living Museum exactly for that reason. They're not native, and so we also like to speak and share invasive species, and because it helps all of us understand, you know, how to respect what is here locally. Could you please show your slide of upcoming webinars? Susan wants to know what you're going to show upcoming. And while you're doing that, did you have internships or did you volunteer at institutions that helped form your current self?
Yes, and that is definitely another attribution I will give to my parents for being able to support me, because back when I was young, feels weird to say that, by the way, but a lot of internships were unpaid. That is something that is definitely changing. A lot of internships are now changing to being paid, which is great because that means more people can do them. But yes, I did lots and lots of internships and volunteers. I internship at a white shark conservancy in South Africa, a local astronomy conservancy. Well, it was a nature conservancy founded on behalf of an astronomer in Nantucket. I worked in a butterfly lab for a while. I did lots and lots and lots of stuff.
Gotcha. Yes, that's valuable. Why? You get on-the-job training, you get resume building, right? You get looked at by more professors who think that you are serious or think that you are open-minded and want to learn. Okay,
you meet
I
people.
don't see any other questions coming at us here. Have any sandbar shark pics for us? I know I saw fancy coral. The corals are hugely important to those ecosystems.
There might be
Love
one
it.
in this video. This is the monitor, by the way.
Yeah.
Sharks don't really necessarily like to be around while people
Hang
are in
on
the
so
water.
much, and when you bring that big light down, they're not so
Yeah.
thrilled about that either. But the species here in our area, we've got in our Chesapeake Bay tank, look downs, they're beautiful, silvered fish, groupers, triple tail, again, the sandbar sharks, the endangered, threatened loggerhead sea turtles. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you so very much. You are always welcome here at the Virginia Living Museum. I know you would get a kick out of enjoying our exhibits and talking with the aquarists who are here, working these waters, many of them that have been in the waters of Virginia for years and years. But I want to thank you all, our audience, for joining us. Naturally Speaking, we're supported very kindly by the Virginia Health Services Group. And thanks for joining us on Zoom. We hope to bring these back to the museum floor in the future. And next week, we'll be speaking with NASA about the largest phytoplankton bloom. And once again, thanks to Mark Losavio for your time this evening, and come visit the Virginia Living Museum. We've got a backyard adventure, really interactive family exhibit right now through the month of April. And it plays with the science and nature that's right in every backyard. So glad you joined us. Join us again March 17, and you all have a great evening. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much for having me, and
Alrighty.
you all have a lovely night.
Thanks. Good night.